Now we're going to have Lala and Didier. They have a presentation for you guys. So,
thinking of, well, if you're thinking of going back to school, there's a few questions you want to ask yourself. For example, you want to do what we like to call a self-reflection. So asking yourself, what are your interests? Your academic strength, and your weaknesses. For example, if you're someone who's really into math or into science, you want to sort of look at your strengths and just sort of tailor your chosen program that way. That's what we suggest. We also say, what is your main motivation for education? Do you want to change your career? Are you looking to have more income, for example? So, yeah, job security, things like that. Length of the programs we had thought about within Alberta. Can you guys hear me again?
yes.
Okay. So we have diplomas which can go for a couple months up to 2 years. That's from NAIT or even McEwen. There's also undergraduate degrees, which are typically 4 years, and then graduate studies, which is like your master's and your PhD degrees. Admissions, you want to have, make sure you research that particular program and see what are your requirements, whether you have your high school requirements met, or such other things people don't typically think of is like interviews. Like there's some programs you will require to do interviews, so you have to kind of prepare yourself for that. Sometimes people can be really nervous, and so just kind of prepping yourself for that. Also, something that's really, really big right now is volunteering hours. A lot of programs are encouraging young people to, or not just young people, if you're trying to go to a particular program, to have your volunteer hours met. So that's something to also consider. Then you want to pre-plan for your finances. Whether you're planning to do, get like student loans, for example, or if, for example, if you're fortunate to have family that's going to support you financially, that's great. But another thing we wanted to really point out to people is to look into bursaries ahead of time. There's a lot of bursaries that people don't tap into, which is unfortunate because there's so many people don't apply for. So that's one thing we really want to emphasize, looking into bursaries because there's so much out there. And then another thing I wanted to highlight is doing your research about the different faculties. So for example, what I mean by that, for me, when I first started to look into the program I wanted to do, I looked at the professors, and then I sort of looked at what their interests were. It kind of let me know if we're on the same path. And so you can email them. Sometimes they even have phone numbers. You can give them a call. Sometimes they don't mind. Just having a quick conversation with them and see if what they did or how they got to where they're at is something that you also, have a common. Yeah. So you also want to research your future career projection. For example, if you look at the different, there's a lot of ranking, like saying what that career you chose, is that going to be in demand 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. So you kind of want to do your research that way and see if that's a good choice. Because there's a lot of people that go to school and you spend 4 years and then you come on, you realize no job. So that's also, you want to avoid doing something like that. Yeah, so, and then another thing I wanted to touch on was jobs that are in demand within your environment. Like we're in Edmonton, right? So you want to look at jobs that are in demand here. And one of the reasons why I brought that up is we find there's a lot of youth who don't tap into the gas and oil industry or the trades, which is a big deal here, right? So just kind of look at it from that perspective as well. Just keep your options open. Yeah, and then just kind of see if you can take it globally. It's not just within Edmonton, but you can kind of take it across. I think that's for you.
Okay, so I think most of this things will be a little bit repetitive. I heard Frederick talking about planning. I think Lala also touched it. There's probably a few questions in the audience people are asking about the same question. So you noticed that some of these things will be a little bit repetitive, but I think and believe that these are the most important things that you have to figure out before you go back to school. What I think the steps to get ready to go back to school, it's not only what I think, it's also part of the resources that we have in the back. You have to find out how much it costs. Obviously, the money is important. How much it will cost you, is it a diploma, is it a degree, and overall, are you going to be able to afford it? And if you can't afford it from your own resources, where can you find those resources? Well, second point kind of complement the first one. Figure out where you're going to get the money. I hear Frederick talking about bursaries and scholarships. This is some of the research. I was surprised myself when I went to university. I was thinking that I will have to come up with the money. But as soon as I got there, I quickly realized that there's a lot of resources that you can get from university. In my case, every year we'll get, I think, about $1,000 just to have classes in French, I believe. By the way, I did my classes at Campus Central. And so you get $1,000, you had different scholarships. So all in all, I think in my case, I had about $13,000 overall that I didn't have to pay for myself, which is a big deal if you think about it. The third step, you have to, I think Lala touched it, you have to fill out applications. Most of the time, in my case, I remember it took me about a year preparing to go back to school. I wasn't sure, you know, am I going to be able to go back? Am I going to have the money? Am I going to be able to pay rent? So it's a mental process. It's sometimes complex than we may think. So you have to fill out those applications for school, the programs, and also the student funding. You have to talk to your family, the support group, which is also an important part. I remember I had to talk to my siblings. You guys think it will be okay? Are we going to be able to make it happen? Are you going to support me if things go wrong? And I think it's unfortunate. I don't see a lot of kids here that we invited that will be more benefiting from this, but it's all here, and they can benefit from it afterwards. So yeah, support group, and also other things, relationships. If you have girlfriends, if you're married, kids, you also have to kind of plan and figure out how the going back to school will work out. Another thing, a few other things that you really have to look at, the attitude. Are you motivated to go back to school, to work towards your goals? Do you know yourself well? And I think, well, I touched it. What am I capable of doing? The feelings toward training. Some people don't think it's important. So you have to kind of figure out where you are in terms of attitude. Being healthy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. I think those who went to school can understand you have to be healthy because there's a lot of pressure. You have to deliver. There's work, there's essays, all kinds of stuff going on there. And so for you to benefit from that environment, I think you have to be healthy. Family again, to figure out your support network and how that will benefit you. And finances, you have to know that students live on a limited budget, and you have to be willing to make those sacrifices. And sacrifice so you can achieve some of the goals in the future. Create an action plan. That's, for me, it was a big deal. I thought just because I thought I was good, I had the works, but to have an action plan helps you to figure out which classes to take, when. So for me, it happened after my second year. First year, I was kind of, you know what, I'll take just about any class. But to have an action plan will help you boost your GPA, give you more chances for scholarships. If you want to do graduate studies, all that works. So for me, I didn't have an action plan in the first year, but in the second